Welcome to our world. This is Sweet Ray of Love, born Valentine's Day. We wanted to share our birth story. We did this all completely natural at home, no pregnancy test, no nothing, all just fueled off good food and good love and knowledge and nourishment. And here she is, happy, healthy, and here I am 2 days later, happy and healthy, with our birth coached by Daddy,
Husband coach childbirth.
Doula Daddy.
Shout out Dr. Bradley.
And if we hadn't done the doula training with Ayla Koenka or found her, this would not have gone the way it did. So we're super grateful.
So I started off?
Yeah.
Cool. So we take it back to early 2003. I was listening to Alpha Vedic podcast with Mike Winter and
2023.
What did I say?
2003.
2023, not 2003. Alpha Vedic podcast, and I was just listening to a bunch of them, and then one of them came on with Ayla Koenka, Uncovering Birth, and I was just listening because I like a good podcast, and Samantha was listening kind of in the background doing her thing, and Ayla kind of brought her to tears because she was at her niece's birth, kind of acting like a doula but not really having the knowledge of one, and her sister-in-law at the time said, "You should be a doula, you're really good at this."
I had no idea what it was.
And then she would, we looked more into Ayla's class, and you had brought it up to me, you were like, "This is something that I really want to do." You mentioned the price and whatnot, and I was like, well, for the knowledge, I'll pay for half, and I want to study everything too, and it'll help us in the future having that knowledge. And so we just went with our intuition. You signed up shortly after, made the down payment, and
yeah. And this was actually in like September 2022 when we listened to that and found her.
Then you started the training in like January last year. Okay, yeah. So this is almost going on 2 years in the making, exactly this experience. And a lot of people were super concerned, didn't know, just thinking that we were just some uneducated hippies doing it at home, when really it was the exact opposite. It was like feeling like we were the most knowledgeable out of any of the resources close by of how to do this. And
we knew where we felt safest, where we feel that everything could go exactly how we chose. We also understand that if anything were really to come to any serious emergency, that like that's where the medical system comes in. But other than that, birth is a natural process. And trusting in the physiological process is really the basis of it all.
Yeah, shout out to Ayla. So knowledgeable. And one of the things that hit me was when she was saying that birth is a natural phenomenon, not a medical procedure. Like once you make that switch in your head and you start to see it from a completely different perspective, that was what really sparked everything, and realizing that it was a natural phenomenon. It was not a medical procedure whatsoever, and we didn't want it to become a medical procedure. And we know the things that would be an emergency to necessitate going to the hospital for a medical procedure, and there's very few things.
Very few things.
We were aware of those things, and I guess we can kind of, that's a little bit of the backstory. I guess we can jump into.
Then also, even before that, like we had found the Weston A. Price Foundation through other things, so we were eating really, really well, and fertility was good, and not that we checked it, but we just felt more vibrant than ever in life. And then years prior to that too, it was like getting rid of the additives and things in food and really just eating whole foods. So it was just like that next switch that then when we heard Ayla and she was hip, we were like, this is the route it all lines up.
Yeah, you were doing yoga teacher training before we met, learning about detoxing and purifying the body and stuff like that. And then shortly after we met, I started getting into martial arts really heavy and realizing that, you know, your diet and your practices outside of training make your training so much better. So we were looking to be healthier in terms of our yoga and martial arts practices. So we were
feeling our best, truly.
And then the pandemic happened, and I came across the Dr. Tom Cowan video, and I was like, wow, this guy, you know, he's really on point. And come to find out, he was the co-founder of the Weston A. Price Foundation. So then we dove into that, became members down in Florida.
Price Foundation.
Yeah, became members of the Weston A. Price Foundation, went some of the chapter meetings, and dove into their newsletters and stuff like that. And then after that, finding that podcast from Ayla and her mentioning the Weston A. Price Foundation in terms of postpartum health and prenatal health and
as well
everything
as
like preconception, right? So we were already right in line with that kind of stuff. And so when she was mentioning that, I was like, yep, this is our gal for sure. Like, we're going to study everything that she has to offer.
And when my sister-in-law had said that I should be a doula, I kind of just like threw it out to the universe because I didn't know where to go, where to begin, what to look into. So then when I found her, it was like tears and just this knowing, like, okay, like I opened that door and allowed whatever to come through, and this is the training, not DONA or other trainings that are not as in-depth and really just like dialed in and connected.
So
then when it came to having baby
oh yeah, right after you got certified.
Yeah, so I did the certification, and then I went and assisted my first birth, which was in a hospital, but it was completely natural. She didn't have anywhere where she felt safe to birth outside of the hospital, so it did happen in the hospital, and it was a beautiful birth. Baby's extremely healthy and alert and aware, and
shout out Dominique.
yeah, we love you. And then it was like a few weeks after that then we then became with child, and I just knew it off the bat. It was like as soon as it happened, I was like, I'm pregnant. Like, I know that I have baby in my belly. And I remember coming to you and you just being like,
we'll find out. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, how do we know?
Yeah, it was after the first missed period. Like, okay, all right, you know, you missed a period. That's not...
Well, and even before I missed my period, I had the implantation bleeding, which would have been like a week before my period was supposed to come. And it was just really, really light. And when I looked into it, I was like, this isn't my normal period. Like, I have a baby growing inside me. And I like was starting to feel like those different shifts, especially in that first trimester early, when like I was just feeling tired and like foods were starting to like cause aversions, and it was just like I knew within me, so I refused to take a pregnancy test.
And that kind of drove me crazy. So, because I know she didn't want any interventions. I'm with that. I understood 100%. But just for my not knowing, because I'm not in her body feeling the things she's feeling, all I know is, okay, one missed period. Okay, like you gotta wait another month for another missed period, and then okay. So then it was by the third missed period, you're like 3 months in, when I finally had the knowing, and it was like all in that time. It was just like, will you really, just to appease my, not anxiety, but like not knowing, just pee on a stick, just so that I have some sort of, it's literally, you don't have to do a test, literally just some pee drip on the stick, just to appease me just a little bit. And she was just not with it. So literally wouldn't even pee on a stick. That's how no intervention we're talking about. Like nothing from conception to birth. That was 2 days ago. So that whole 10 months, not one ultrasound, not one doctor doctor visit, not one gender test, not no interventions, zero, the whole process. So
and the peeing on the stick, like so many people are like, it's so simple, like it's not invasive, like why would you not do it? And really it comes down to it's the first like distrust of my intuition of baby and baby spirit, and I was just not about that. So I wanted to make sure it was like, I know this. And we do, like we innately know these things when they go on within us, so it's all about trusting.
It was the only real like kind of like I was in limbo. I was like in this like purgatory area where it was just like I'm just doing my thing, and maybe my wife's pregnant, maybe she's not. I don't know. And so people were in my life were like, "Oh, my wife might be pregnant." They're like, "Why don't she take his pregnancy test?" I'm like, "She won't." And it's just like, I respect that, I get it. So I just kept saying, "Well, we'll find out. We'll see." And you knew, but I was just like, "Well, maybe the third or fourth missed period, it kind of hit me, and you start to have a little bump, and it's just like." Okay. That's how but I had to wait that long because she wouldn't even pee on a stick. So that's how anti-intervention tests, everything was the most natural that you could possibly be.
Well, and that being said too, like my cycles are really like, they follow the cycles. Like my period would come every new moon, and so I knew like it was really on. So then when it wasn't, I was like, okay, this is something different. So it was really like, it clicked with me. But I mean, of course, being someone outside of me, like I get it, and I got it then too, and it was that same kind of feeling.
It's just a mutual respect kind of thing, like.
Yeah.
Cool.
But just like trust me, and here we are now.
So you want to fast forward to the actual birth story? That's a lot of the backstory.
I mean, pregnancy was really good. Like I will just go through, like I felt really good the whole time. Just had a few like aversions to food and some cravings right in the beginning. Like I was eating olives and cheese for breakfast
while drinking coffee.
Well,
you would have some
You
sips.
always say while drinking coffee, but it was like you brought me like this tiny cup of coffee, and
she's having cheese and coffee. That's not a non-pregnant thing. Like, I'm craving fats from cheese, but I also want a little bit of coffee.
Like, like give me a couple sips of that coffee. I just love the taste. So that was really that. Otherwise, once the first trimester passed, then that was all beyond me. Or I was beyond that. And then second trimester hit, I felt really good. I became prenatal yoga certified. I was just like moving, feeling good. And we were in Florida at this time too. Come to November, as baby started getting closer, we weren't sure exact dates. I mean, dates aren't exact anyway. Due dates are just really guesstimates. Because there are, I know you read that Dr. Bradley book where he was saying there was a woman who gestated for 7 months and the baby was
7.5 months or something, and she had a 6-some pound baby, completely healthy and natural.
I thought that baby was bigger.
Oh yeah, so it was like a 10-pound baby, and the gestation period was like 7 or so months, and then there was a 11 or so months, almost a year gestation period, and the baby was like 6 or something like that. So it was like the gestation period is all individual. We knew the due date thing was a whole myth, so we just kind of leaned right into it. We're like, well, baby's gonna come when baby comes, and that's that. We're not, so.
So yeah, November came around, and my grandma was down in Florida, and we have a lot of friends who are our family down there, but it's just different to have like true family support. So Travis one day was having kind of a rough day and was like, I think we should move home. And place my faith and my trust in him as my partner to lead us into what would be best for us and our family. And we left the next week.
5 days after the decision was made, we were back in Maryland.
Because we had called my mom that day, and she was like, "So you're coming home tomorrow?" And we were like, "Well,
back in the car."
Yeah, pretty much. So then things shifted a lot coming home, especially being in like my home that I grew up in. There's a lot that then was there to unpack and to settle into, which was necessary for baby. So now there's a lot of things that baby doesn't have to go through that I was able to like sit with and to grow through and to realize like just the love that I have for these people and accepting everyone where they are, no matter what feelings it might bring up, especially from like being young and us being away then for 2 years and doing so much and then coming back, like just shifts that had been made. So there was a lot that was here to unpack since November. Not just our things, but emotional and mental, spiritual things.
Mm-hmm. So you want to fast forward?
Yeah, so then
2 days ago.
It's, well, I guess, and then it started to come down to the birth, and like everyone around us was just like waiting. Because originally, when I had counted whatever from like back to the due dates, it was like January 25th, and then we kind of tried to move it back, like thinking like, okay, maybe it was before that, and then maybe it was after, but really kind of just doing that to please others to give them a date.
Mm-hmm. Next time we won't do that.
Yeah, we decided that we're not even going to go about dates at all.
We might tell them 2 months way after expected time so that they don't even think baby's anytime soon, and then next thing you know, boom, baby's here, and then everybody's surprised, because telling them any sort of day, it was kind of nerve-wracking, answering questions, this and that. When are you going to induce? How much longer after a due date? And this and that. And it was just like a lot of answering questions. Not that, it's bad, but it was just like that was time and energy that we could have spent just.
It wasn't the time and place that I felt necessary to share that. Like
the first birth.
Just trust what we're doing. I know it's outside of what had been done in either of our families or people around us.
Yeah.
But just trust us. And I feel like the people around us enough know who we are that they were like, they're going to do what they're going to do.
We are stubborn in our own rights, and our own families know that about us, and that's definitely how we've manifested each other.
Yeah. But we're stubborn in
not in an ignorant kind of way, just
we do research, and we really choose based off what is truly best. But so, yeah, now, rewind 4 days ago, I woke up at like 2:30ish on the 12th.
Right after the Super Bowl. Super Bowl was done, and then she mentioned at 3 a.m. the next day, you woke me up after your water broke, and sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was like, oh, baby was waiting for after football season. Didn't even want to be distracted by football season. So anyway, after the Super Bowl that next morning.
And I had a really good day with my mom. Like we went out that Sunday and we're just like shopping around, being goofy, and just like really instilled this appreciation that I had for her. And it was really beautiful. It was really nice to get to spend that time with her. So then I feel like the next day that's when my body was like, it's time to open. And I woke you up because I remember laying in bed, and I used to get really bad period cramps, so I know what that feels like. And I was like, that's kind of what it felt like. And I had like 10 of them in about half an hour to 45 minutes. And I was just kind of laying in bed, feeling it through, like seeing, like, is this going to continue? What's going on? So I then got up and jumped in the shower, took a warm shower. So that's something I've done throughout pregnancy too. Is I just like to get up and get in the shower and just kind of feel that warmth. We have a little bar in the shower that like I like squat down and hold on to, and not that I was prepping for birth in the shower, but if it was to happen, it was a really good place that I found there. And then I came back in the room and I was like, "Hey Travis, can you like help me grab this stuff and let's go downstairs and lay in front of the fireplace?" So he like instantly was like, "Wait, what? Like, okay, let's go. Like, it's time. Like, wherever you want to be, let's go." So we grabbed a bunch of blankets. We had some tarps with like the plastic coating on the bottom just to lay over some things.
Painter's drop cloths.
Yeah, nice ones. So we brought those down. We brought blankets. We brought things to just be comfy, thinking that maybe it would happen in front of the fireplace because that's what was calling to me then. And then, honestly, from this point forward, like I have a vague memory, but oxytocin is one heaven of a hormone. Sorry, girl. And it definitely shifted like the way that my whole view of it went, because I do remember being in the moment and being like, okay, like hopefully this goes by, like I know it'll take its time, whatever it is, but like it was not comfortable, but I knew that baby was on the other side, and that's what really brought comfort. But you really remember because you were there. And I also wanted to share that in Florida we had a doula and a birth keeper, and like we had people lined up to be there, and that we wanted there with us. Shout out to Sydney and Angie and all our other loved ones. But once we moved, it was so close. We couldn't find anyone. We were gonna fly in Angie, and that didn't end up working out. It would have been way early anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But so it.
Yeah, I really knew that we weren't gonna have a doula or any other woman present. So I've never been to a birth. Not my sisters, not like nobody. I've never been even at a hospital in a waiting room. So I didn't know what to expect really. So it was like doubling down on studying Dr. Bradley's husband coach childbirth, and this is an obstetrician who's almost single-handedly responsible for bringing husbands into the delivery room and making the husbands, not making, but offering the husbands the knowledge and the opportunity to participate in the birth of their children. And he's been to, in his 40-some year career, has delivered 23,000 babies. So that resource was paramount in my experience of just seeing it from the husband's perspective, because or a man's perspective. We did all the studying and the doula training and everything like that, but it wasn't a lot geared towards the masculine side of holding space and being a doula. And then we even asked Ayla during the training, it was like, how many male doulas are there? And it was like maybe one that she had known. So it was like, I'm all for breaking the tradition and setting new precedent and stuff like that. And that's what Dr. Bradley did in his time in the 50s. And he was seen as that, like, that new paradigm. And I really resonate with that because I feel that within myself. So it was, I've just studied that book intensely, knew it like the back of my hand, and knew that if this medical doctor, obstetrician with 23,000 births under his belt wrote this book, you're bypassing all this learning curve and just consuming his 50-year career in obstetrics. And it was I knew at that time it was like, we don't need a doula. I'm gonna step up, and how it's gonna go is gonna be because that's what we're choosing. We don't need a third party whatsoever. Even though that they were trained with the uncovering birth, knowledge and stuff like that. So was I. So it was like, all right, I really felt like having another woman present who had been around, maybe even given birth herself, like Angie. Sydney has never given birth, but she's been at a lot of births. I just felt like maybe there would be that little bit of comfort to help guide me in helping, but it was just
once
like,
it wasn't gonna work out, it just was like, okay, well, we're gonna
it was either nut up or shut up. You're gonna finish the deed that you started, and deliver your own baby at home, which is, thinking about it not having the knowledge. I get why people would think that it's scary, but it was
we felt really safe.
the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, I know I felt really safe, and I really attribute a lot of that to Ayla's course too, because not only do you go over like all the birth and everything that then you help the women with, but you really dive into yourself and moving through things that, again, like blocks that you may have within you, or there's just so much in that training that shifted so much in my life that like opened the door for me to even then be impregnated, or I don't know, I don't like that word, to then have this baby
with child.
But so there was so much that we had worked through, and then coming into like being in the whole labor space. So we were laboring, and back to that, we'll go back to the story now. I kind of jump around, so just bear with us. Being in front of the fire was beautiful. We had our cats, actually, our cats chose not to leave us all day that first day. They were just like surrounding me on one side or the other. They just stayed right there by our side. And Travis was such a good help. Like any food or anything that I needed, he was right there with it. Kept me. We had prepared a lot of food and like labor juice, which was like
the first 40 days, the essential art of nourishing the new mother. Shout out to that book.
Yeah, they have a Schwitzel or something.
Yes.
That was really good, and we had prepped it before and had like ice cubes made out of it that I could like either chew on or just drink the water, whatever we mixed it in.
Every contraction was like, have another sip.
Yeah.
Good job, babe.
Yeah.
Kiss you on the forehead.
So it went really well. Day one was kind of like I had periods where I was in it and things would kind of start to get rhythmic. Contractions would extend a little bit. Travis started timing things. But we were able to rest a lot through that. So I think it was kind of just like baby being like, I'm coming.
Get ready.
Get ready. Here's kind of what you're going to get to see and go through. And I got to get a lot of rest in that time, which I know is important. I'd get up and move around some. But I wasn't trying to push it. I was just trusting my body and where it was and what it was doing. And then that evening, it was that evening, right? That then I took another shower.
Monday evening, yeah.
Yeah, I took another shower.
Slowed things down.
Yeah, the shower slowed things down, and that was okay. I think it was, again, so that then we could get like, we got a pretty decent amount of time of rest then. But then
they came back on.
But then they came on during sleep, and I was able to then like continue to sleep through. But I woke up then with like crazy chills, and this was like the one moment that came through that like I had fear actually come through, because within
about 24 hours after the water broke.
Yeah.
Was when this happened.
So it was like that instilled fear that kind of came through, where it was like, I know everyone around us was like, well, 24 hours, like you're supposed to be induced, like if you're at the hospital, that's what they'd be doing. I think all that hit me from everyone and from that outside fear. And I was like, is something going on? Like, like, there was a switch within me that was either like, you're going to give into these feelings and it's going to cause this cascade to
create that.
to then happen, or what I ended up doing was like sitting with it and really just realizing that my hair was wet. Our fan was on because I like the moving air, and I got really cold.
There's nothing going on.
I was okay. Baby was okay. And I feel like I'm a firm believer that we're always being tested. So that was like one of those tests. And especially with the way that we've chose to do this whole thing, I, from the beginning, was like, I want to do what's best for me and baby, but also so then I can really offer to my clients like the best and like the bare minimum of what you really have to do. And I feel like this was one of those tests where someone might get scared. Like, this is why I went through these things, is because now I have lived it, so I can actually share it from experience. But that was really the only place that fear stepped in. Otherwise, I mean, contractions were strong. There was good pressure coming through, and I was in some pain. And then I remembered also Ayla has a course that is a containment course, and it's all about finding safety within yourself and then being able to hold that safe space for others. And that clicked in my brain. And so, like, while I was having these more powerful contractions, I remembered, like, okay, where do I feel safe in my body? And I feel really safe through my feet. I'm constantly grounded and barefoot and outside, like, walking around in the grass. And, like, I feel really safe down through my feet. So while I would have a contraction come on, I would then focus down through my feet. And the pain of the contraction would then just kind of, like, go away. I also was doing a lot of vocal work, which I learned from Eileen McCusick and her Sing the Body Electric, which kind of goes along with her biofield tuning, but it's using your body as the instrument to vibrate in these certain places. So, like, down and out the bottom of your pelvic floor is the sound wah. So, I mean, he'll tell you I was wahing up a storm.
I was like, when Dory in Finding Nemo was trying to talk to the whales, and she was in the, what was the dad's name?
Marlin.
Marlin was like, you speak whale? And she was like, whoa, whoa. She would do that, and then the contraction would kind of settle down. I wasn't trying to make jokes in the you know, in the heat of the moment, but when everything would kind of settle down, I'd give her a sip, and I'd be like, you speak whale. It was just, you know, lightening up the mood a little bit. And it was just like, because we had just watched Finding Nemo with your niece not that long ago, like last week.
Right.
And it was just so funny because it sounded exactly like Dory when she was talking to the whales.
It was going through my brain too.
But yeah, so you were talking about fear, and that was the one time fear.
Yeah.
And I got in with you.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily feel fear because the knowledge kind of casts out fear, but there was a time when I feel like it was right when you were experiencing that. I just felt like I wished that there was more that I could do, you know, because, you know, it was almost like, let me just take this on. I wish it was me, not you. You know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of, you know, broke me down for a little bit, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then playing through different scenarios of if we did need to transfer, and I was just like, well, I know the few things that would necessitate having to transfer, and then playing different scenarios in my head as if we did, and then like, okay, we go with our birth choice documents or the affidavit to the hospital, and hoping to find a nurse or obstetrician that's kind of on board with any sort of natural birth, when the hospitals that we would go to, if they're working at those hospitals, they're
Probably
already kind of not on board with it. So we would kind of be battling the whole time with signing different waivers of liability and things like that. And then if anything were to happen, I would feel like it would have been obviously not my fault, because now I kind of passed the torch to an obstetrician who was probably a man. So I didn't even really play into those scenarios very often, because it was like I knew that if anything that was going to happen was going to happen here, and it was going to be at home, not anybody else's fault. We were going to do it how we were going to do it, no matter what. And so it was kind of like the hardest part for me was in those moments of when it was hard for you, and I was just wishing that I could do more. And it wasn't really from a fearful place. It was just like, I wish I could be doing this and not you, because seeing you in that, you know. So that was really the only fear for me.
Yeah, and we were definitely feeling those things at the same time. So it's interesting, like how we were feeling them together.
Right at the 24-hour mark.
Yeah.
Labor for 48 hours.
Yeah, so then continuing on from there, that's when I feel like I started to really just be like, you know what? Everything in my mind switched, and it turned to like, I have to do this for myself no matter what. Because then as you were going through hospital thoughts, like I kind of played through like, okay, if I go there, they're going to want to induce me an epidural and all those things, and that's not what I'm seeking, and or then it's going to go to a C-section, and that's not what I'm seeking. Right. So I am going to stay here and continue to know that I'm safer here.
Right. If you want your car worked on, you don't go to a carpenter. So it's like you're going to the hospital for something that we're choosing is completely different. So it's counterintuitive, but it's so ingrained in us to play through scenarios of going to the hospital. But the few situations that I know do necessitate going to the hospital, we would know those situations, and then we would be going to the hospital asking for that specific service. Like, we're here, we had cord prolapse, we need a C-section, get us into surgery. Not passing the torch because we don't know and we're fearful, and now so you take over. No, I'm still in control, holding the space and being that gatekeeper, and we are here seeking this service. Can you help or not? Okay. Right. Not going there. She's been laboring for 24 hours. She got a little cold. We're a little scared. Will you help us?
Right.
And they're not going to have the answers either. So it was like, if we didn't go there with more information just because we were fearful, that wasn't going to happen. It was like, we're going to do it here, and that's
right. And I think
we're willing to accept the consequences of whatever happens here, more so than if it were to happen at the hospital. I just couldn't live with myself with that.
Right. And that's right around the time that then I feel like I started to transition happening within us. Like, I mean, you can see the transition of even the thoughts, but I like threw up at that point and had to like get that out. And then I really was able to fall into surrender of each contraction, where when it would go, I would sit back and I'd feel where it is that I needed to like really like, okay, this is the space that I'm opening up. So I really felt between like that tightening of the Kegels and the pushing of the Kegel, or the releasing. And I really started to work with those motions and really understand that like, this is the opening and this is what I'm trying to do. And within my body, while they would get intense and I'd be making my whale sounds, I would be thinking to myself that I am opening, I am opening, I am opening, and allowing this release. And I also would go through then thoughts of just thinking of baby, and that we're doing this together, and that all of this is for us together. It's for the benefit of her. Well, I didn't know it was her or him, or it was for the benefit of the both of us, to really release. And then the contractions would like subside, or they wouldn't subside, but the pain would, or the thought of the pain. And I would then rest in between, because I was like, okay, this is a good time. Like, now let me get my rest in between. So I started then not like moaning and groaning in between or whining so much. It was more like, okay, I am focused. So really in that transition stage, moving forward. And I was a determined woman at that point. And it went on for a while, but again, because we had already been through 24 hours, I think Rhea was allowing me to then get the rest, because I would go and I would open and then I'd look at Travis and I'd be like, okay, I think like I've been doing this for a while. Let me, like, it'd be really nice to rest for a bit and then get back to it. And I would rest, and then the contractions would like calm for a second, and then, or not a second, but a few minutes, and I would sleep, and then they'd pick back up, and I would really like, then it'd kind of wake me back up. And at this point, day 2, we're here where we are right now in our room, and we had moved everything just like back up here, and it was nice to have this sacred space. And then I don't know, I guess I just continued to roll through that all day. I didn't eat much that second day. I was not hungry. Travis was still bringing me the labor juice and tea and milk and bone broth. I really wanted raw milk that day, so like I got that down really well. And probably like as it started to get dark, I looked over, and on our desk we had this little bottle of arnica, like sugar pills. So
homeopathic arnica.
Placebo or not. I was like, what about that arnica? And Travis did some research. He was like, I don't know, I'm not just gonna give you something like you're in labor.
Yeah, I didn't want to introduce anything to her into her bloodstream while in active labor. So I started looking into arnica use during labor, not just during pregnancy or you know what I mean. So like during active labor, and there was this article written by Lauren something. She's a medical doctor that uses a variation of different homeopathic remedies during active labor, and we only had the arnica. And when I'd seen it, she was saying that for swelling of the cervix and pain, any sort of injuries, it's good for after labor. It's good, and so she said one tablet every hour on the hour during active labor is what she used. And so, after I read that, I told her, I was like, here, take this. And she took one. Then she was like, wow, that's actually, I kind of feel better.
The contractions had really turned from like any pain to just pressure.
Yeah.
So I would feel the waves come and be like, okay, this is now when I'm gonna like do my next motions and go with it. And
maybe
it was amazing.
2-3 hours, maybe 4 tablets of arnica later, and you look over at me, you're like, I gotta poop. And so you go to the bathroom.
We went to rest again, because I felt like, okay, I've kind of been like pushing. We kind of thought maybe I had pushed some hemorrhoids, because my like butt was really hurting, and
arnica helped.
The arnica made a world of difference. And then so I laid down, and while I was laying down, I then it was just like unbearable to lay there anymore. And I got up and I was like, I think I really have to poop.
Okay.
And he
Let's
was
go
like,
poop.
that's fine. We kind of went on all fours, and he was like, you look good. And I was like, I want you to come with me. So I went to the bathroom and was sitting on the toilet, and I like sat there, and it was every time a wave would come through, I would have to like push off the sides of the walls and like I then would like wipe a little bit, and it was so intense.
Yeah, and I thought she was pooping, and so I'm looking at her, and I'm like, babe, are you having contractions? She was like, I can't. I was like, let's go back into the room. I don't want you to, have a baby here. Don't you wipe, clean yourself up, and we'll go back into the room.
I kept trying to wipe.
She was like, every time she would like reach back behind to wipe, or try to stand up or whatnot, she's like, I have to push, and I'm like, I've never had a poop where I had to push. I could choose to push or not, but she had to push. I was like, babe, you're having a contraction. And so right at that moment, I was like, wait, maybe this isn't a poop. So we always kept the lights real low, so I always had my headlamp to check her. And so I turned the flashlight on and went to check her while she was sitting on the toilet. And before I could check, she kind of reached her hand down, and she's like, oh, that's the baby's head.
Well, and I think we actually ended up turning the light on because we thought it was a poop. And I was wiping, and then, but still, like, to see down
I went
into
to
the
go
toilet,
see it,
you use the headlamp.
and she reached down, and she was like, oh, that's the baby's head. And I was like, okay, babe, get in the shower, squat down, get onto the rail, like, let's do it right here in the bathtub. Easy clean up, everything in the bathtub. And from that moment, from the time she said, oh, that's the baby's head, I said, okay, babe, get in the tub.
And this is the shower.
There's no water in the tub or anything like that. I just wanted it to be in the tub. And she got in the tub, grabbed the handle, squatted down. It's maybe 4 or 5 minutes, 10 pushes later. Little
comes Rhea.
Little baby Rhea comes out.
And like, we did no cervical checks. Like, I wasn't doing anything on my own.
Check.
If anything, I would kind of reach down and just like feel like, okay, it's opening. Like, I could tell it was opening. And yeah, at that point, once the head was there, I was like, oh, okay, we're here. So like, as I was pushing, as baby was coming through, I was kind of just rubbing my fingers around like the outside of the lips and like around the head between the two, so that like just helping to guide that little bit. But I had been moving and changing positions through the whole thing. Like, I was a lot on hands and knees, but then sometimes I'd be in the squat. I would
semi-lunge.
Yeah, semi-lunge. So I was like moving through all the different positions, and I just had a innate knowing that like baby was head down. I mean, however baby was coming, baby was coming.
You could feel the presentation.
Yeah.
Baby came out perfect. Presentation.
Yeah.
Head first, facing your spine.
As soon as the head came through, she then went down. I caught her, which was so amazing.
And she was alert from the time she came out, eyes wide open, looking at us, moving her head around, and she was.
There was meconium, so she had poop.
She had passed. In your uterus.
So she was like coughing it up, which was really good, and I like suckled on her face and suckled on her nose and mouth.
But you didn't do it too much. You let her cough it up.
Yeah.
Let her fight.
We just held her face down.
And I was like, "Come on, baby, you're a fighter. You can do it." And she was like.
I think he wiped her eyes while I was cleaning her or watching her, holding her.
And I was like, "Babe, help her." And you put your mouth over her nose and mouth and suck it up and spit in the tub.
Yeah.
And then slowly you could start to hear her. It's like, yeah, babe, let get cry, let me hear it. And then, and then once she was cleared, you knew she could breastfeed.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, latch right to the nipple. She had that suckle response because she wasn't drugged up. She knew exactly what to do. 5 minutes later, you're like, let's try the other one. Boom, latch on the other nipple.
Yeah, and I really, again, playing to the trust of what I've been wanting and choosing through this whole process. I really felt strongly in the crawl. So I placed baby's head like right here, still attached to the shout, and let her choose where she wanted to go and to find that latch on her own. I didn't try to like force it or anything. She latched right away, which I am grateful for. I went to a couple La Leche League meetings when I was down in Florida, and they had really taught me a lot of different tricks and things and what to watch for. So even though I let her do it, I knew what I was watching for. So I put her like belly button to belly button, and that gave her good room and space. And yes, we're talking all about you. And then I had sat back in the tub, like moved to the back, and then I was like, Travis, my butt's really getting sore. Like while we wait for this,
hour into it, she's just bonding, having that golden hour, and baby's feeding, and everything's just great. We're just keeping an eye on the cord. The cord was super plump and thick, and then after an hour it was like a little thinner, so it was getting everything from the placenta. And she goes, my
I
butt.
don't know that I don't think it had been quite an hour when I sat up like that, but it maybe like half an hour.
Okay, so after baby was born, uh, we she's like, my butt is really sore. Can you put a towel under it? And I was like, yeah. So like she holding the baby, she just puts her elbows up on the thing and kind of lifts her butt up, and I go to put the towel under it, and just from her abs flexing to hold her butt up off the floor of the tub, and I go to put it in, whoop, the placenta just came right out. Just not even a contraction, really. It wasn't even another thing. It was just the response of baby breastfeeding on the nipple. Just let the uterus release the placenta, and and there it was. So we just put it in the stainless steel bowl and put it close, and I kind of massaged the placenta a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to
and then I
say hi.
Laid back for a little longer, just continuing the bonding. It was probably then about like 2.5 hours later that Travis was like, okay, like I think it's time for the next step. And I was like, okay, like I knew I didn't want to cut the cord right away. I wanted to let it stop pulsating. Our plan wasn't to do like a full lotus or anything like that because I want to consume it. So I was like, okay, probably a good time. We looked at the cord. It had gone from like that plump blue purple to
shrunk down a little bit.
Like it was white now. And I massaged the cord multiple times, probably for like 10 to 15 minutes toward her from the placenta. To get all those good stem cells, everything that baby needs that's still in there. Like there's still stuff that's being transferred that whole time. So I moved as much as I could, and then we had one of our friends made us a beautiful
cord tie.
Knitted cord tie, and Travis tied it off, and he made 2 separate knots. So like the bottom one was there tied tight, then there was the next one tied tight, so we knew it was well sealed. And then he grabbed his knife, and his knife he uses every day.
My pocket knife, the Swiss Army knife that I use every day. I knew it was really sharp, and I just wanted to use that knife. I have that knife. I use that knife every day at work, and that's the knife that I cut my baby's cord with.
We said a little blessing.
Said a little blessing.
Ceremony.
Said thank you to the placenta. It did its job. We're gonna, utilize every little bit of nutrients that it has. Cut the cord. I rinsed off the placenta. Got it in the freezer bag. Put it in the freezer, and then I got my first chance to hold the baby. And then you wanted to take a shower, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump up and rinse off real quick because
she
from sitting in the tub, had the blood.
Said, hey, take your shirt off. Pull my shirt off real quick. She hands me baby. And right when she hands me baby, our kitty cat Tico smelled her head at the same time. I got to hold her for the first time. So Tico was right there, and I was holding her for maybe 10 minutes. You rinsed off, took a shower. So within 2-3 hours of you giving birth, you were standing up, showering, and moving around. And that's not what happens in any other sort of setting when you're induced on drugs, cut open, all these other scenarios other than completely natural. Like Dr. Bradley says, some 80% of his births that he attended, the mother and the father were walking out of the delivery room having their orange juice within 2 hours after the birth. And that's what I just kept picturing every time, was like, we're going to have a ceremonial glass of orange juice, and you're going to be up, moving around, breastfeeding. It's all within 2 hours of the birth.
We let it go a little longer.
Yeah, we
than
went
2
a little
hours,
longer.
just
Yeah,
'cause we
was,
let it play out how it was meant to play out. What felt right.
It was perfect.
And I did also then want to mention that my perineum did not tear, but I do have a tear on one of the side labia, right around, which I've just been taking care of with.
I mean, it's
a tiny little tear.
A quarter of an inch tear.
And it's so much better for your body to naturally heal. And leading up to this, I've been drinking like herbal teas that are really good for healing. And I'll post some of that stuff in like the notes or wherever we post this.
Yeah, we're going to be helping a lot of people.
And it, like that was it. And in those moments, like when I got up to shower, rinsed off, like everything was so swollen then, of course baby just pushed out of there, that I couldn't really tell, but I felt a little space where I was like, I think that might be torn, but it'll be okay. My blood amount was perfectly fine. I was so alert and aware through the whole thing.
Yeah, not much blood at all. Really.
And like I felt good, but I mean, I personally, like, not that tearing is good, but I personally am happier that I tore on the side rather than right in the back, where that's where they would cut you for an episiotomy.
Even if you don't need it.
And then they stitch you up, and then there's all that healing to go through, where like yesterday everything had like gone back down almost to normal size and like today I'm able to like really get in there and clean. We took a little sitz bath together, me and Rhea. We gave her first bath yesterday, another herbal bath, which was really nice. So we let like the vernix and everything soak in for a while, and yeah, it was an amazing experience. I wouldn't choose anything different next time, but I know what it is that I'm feeling. I know like even more that trust, and like there's nothing to fear, and there's just practices that can be put into play that come along with trust and finding and knowing safety within yourself. And like I kept coming back to communication with this little one while we were in that space, and I've meditated and communicated with her throughout the whole thing. So it was really just like, I'm here, we're doing this, like come through whenever's right. And I'm so grateful that I had you there by my side.
I am so proud of you.
Thank you. Because it would have been so different. And like the fact that you do step in not only as my birth partner, but as like a doula in a sense, because you have all the training that I have. Like it was such a beautiful experience, and I already see like shifts in the people who are around us, and the way that they had been asking us and poking us and asking us all these questions. They're like, now they're like, oh, okay.
We always had answers for them though. So that's like, there's a difference in like, criticizing the medical industrial complex and the way that modern medical birth is, like people calling what we're doing alternative, when the modern medical practice is a little bit more than 100 years old. So really, this isn't alternative. What the modern medical experiments are nowadays have less integrity than what we're doing, and what they're doing is alternative. This is an alternative. This is the way that it should be. So it's different than just criticizing for the sake of criticizing. Then you're just talking shit. We're criticizing, but then also offering solutions and offering answers. It's not the same thing. We're offering solutions, providing answers, criticizing in a not degrading way, just knowing that this is what it is, this is what we're choosing, this is why we're choosing, this is why we're saying no. So when people were poking fun or asking questions, we always delivered on the answers and stuff like that. So I'm grateful. I just want to keep learning and keep reading and be that male doula that nobody even thinks that can be a thing, but
yeah. So we'll work together as a team. But this was just such an amazing experience, and we really wanted to share it with everyone who chooses to give it the time of day, give it a listen, who wants to know our story. Because it was those 48 hours were quite the journey for me, and I know quite the journey for you also. And it was so transformational that I truly feel, I don't know, saying like a new person is not really what I'm trying to say, but I do feel brand new, and I know that I did that. Like, I had to do that all on my own. Like, even though Travis was here supporting, I had to do it all on my own. And that is, no matter what the case is, with support or not, like, yes, then you know you have someone. And it is, like, knowledge opens that trust in a lot of people and in a lot of ways. So I think that that's really important, is that if you're choosing to go down this path, that you find someone who is knowledgeable and learn from them and study them and really feel safe within the practice that you're choosing, and sit with it and dive into past traumas that may be blocking you from fully opening, and really allow yourself to open and to surrender, because that's what goes on during the entire process. Is it's an opening and surrendering, and within that you become, like, I surprised myself, even though I knew I could do it, and that's what was going to go on. It was just like, there's no doubt. Like, I knew that I was going to bring her into this world in the best way possible, and she is an amazing little angel, and I wouldn't ever choose to do anything differently, even with whatever quote unquote pain I went through. Like, yes, like, breakthroughs take breakdowns, so that pain is necessary.
Yeah, the pain of regret is worse than whatever pain you would feel during what you just experienced.
Yeah, and I honestly don't remember the pain now.
Yeah, it's not oxytocin. Heaven of a drug. It's a good way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Shoulder, cover your